What's good with the YouTube of Convicts Perspective? It's your boy, Big Flacco, smashing, dashing, sliding on through, as you already know, with a little bit of energy. Let's get it cracking, people. As you already know, man, hope you guys all have a blessed day today, man. We're going to get straight to it, man. We're going to talk a little bit about the origins of the Aryan Brotherhood and Black Guerrilla family, as far as where their conflict started back in the days, as well as we're going to end it with an interesting article where some B.G.F members actually testified on behalf of the Aryan Brotherhood. Some well-known individuals in this story here, man. But without further ado, Rojo's going to get straight to it. We're going to start it off with a little history breakdown, and Rojo's going to talk about the first article.
All right, man. So you guys know one of our personal acquaintances, Gabe Morales, is an author, former CDC, everything. You know what I mean? CO, gang, etc., etc. Also a very good author, man. His history is second to none. So this comes from his book. We used it with permission. Shout out to Gabe Morales. He has a channel called Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians here on YouTube. And he also has numerous books. And this book is called The History of the Aryan Brotherhood. And man, you should check out his site and check out his books, because everything he says is point blank dead on. This one in particular is about the Aryan Brotherhood. So we'll get to it. The Aryan Brotherhood, AB, declared war on the Black guerrilla family after a white convict named Robert Holderman was stabbed and beaten to death by Black inmates at San Quentin in 1967. The incident is said to be a big reason why the AB formed in the first place. In January of 1970, a large fight ensued on a Soledad prison yard involving the Blacks and the whites. AB member Billy Buzzard Harris was shot in the groin. Aryan Brotherhood members Harpo Harper and Chuko Wendiker were also involved in the incident. The yard gunner, correctional officer Opie Miller, shot and killed 3 Black inmates involved in the skirmish. And this infuriated the B.G.F, who felt it showed favoritism toward the whites. Think about what year this was. Well, there is no known hard proof that there were distinct or very organized pre-Aryan Brotherhood groups. The California Department of Correction staff called them by various names, such as the Diamond Tooth Gang, Bluebirds, Nazis, and finally, the Aryan Brotherhood. They officially started in San Quentin in 1967, and per minority inmates were sometimes favored by the guards. Seems logical. Where was I? Excuse me, guys. An AB member by the name of, I'm going to get this right. An Aryan Brotherhood member who was of Irish descent by the name of Jack Red Mahoney influenced the Aryan Brotherhood, also called the Brand, to use a shamrock as one of their symbols. According to some prison gang experts, only bona fide AB members must have the rock tattoo. Some earlier Aryan Brotherhood members were Eddie Vaughn, A number A24437, Wayne Bulldog Ladd, also A number, William McGurk, A number, who had mafia ties. There was Bucky Garrett, A number, Carl Nooner, A number, Mark Duplass, B number, and those individuals all had some kind of ties to Washington State. Other early AB members were Tall Dennis Murphy, B47015, Joe Morris, A number. There was Donald Hale, A number, and Fred Menderin. If you guys remember, he killed an NF member on behalf of the Mexican Mafia, which kind of solidified their relationship back in 1972. There's Ronnie Spots Berg, B number, Tommy Slim Center, A number, Ronnie Harpo, B number, Robert Chuko Wendicare, B number, Larry Zig, B1, Mike Carmile, B3, Eddie Burnett, A number, Melvin Moose Forbes, B number, Paul Allen, and George Hart. Also played major roles early on in the Aryan Brotherhood. The Aryan Brotherhood is run by a commission in California as well as a commission in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the BOP system. In 2012, the California Commission consisted of John Stanton, Philip Fortman, and David Chance. Some recent Federal Commission shot callers were, these are the famous ones, Barry Red Baron Mills, Tyler T.D. Bingham, and Mike Big Mac McKinney. Excuse me. Both commissions approve Prospective members make decisions on rules and are responsible for resolving problems between members. The committee is also the authority which issue orders for hits or contracts, and the AB leadership expects their orders to be carried out. Pardon me, you guys. Barry Mills was well known to convicts across the United States. As a young man, he was arrested in the summer of '67 at a bus stop in Ventura, California, and held for a transfer to Sonoma County, where he had been issued a warrant for grand theft auto. In December of that year, he was denied a request for probation and held at the Sonoma County Jail. On January 29th of 1968, Mills and another inmate escaped from the Sonoma County Honor Farm. Mills was arrested a few weeks later in Windsor, California, and held on an escape without force charge. About a month later, he was sentenced to serve 6 months on the auto theft and a year and a day in state prison on the escape charge. He was sent to the California Medical Facility Reception Center, CMF, in Vacaville for intake. He was released in March of 1969 from the California Training Facility in Soledad. Approximately 2 weeks after the 1970 Soledad prison incident where 3 black men were killed, Mills and his crime partner, William Hackworth, were arrested for robbing a Stewart's Point convenience store off of Pacific Coast Highway 1 that netted $775. Hackworth soon rolled on Mills, who was sentenced to do 5 years in prison. Mills killed the black inmate named Charles White in San Quentin in 1970, allegedly because White had disrespected him during his prior prison stint at Soledad. San Quentin prison authorities had placed White very near Mills' cell. Mills was also credited with the killing of inmate Garland Berry at San Quentin in 1977, but he was never convicted of it and was released at the end of that year. Mills was sent back to prison, this time to the Bureau of Prisons, the federal system, for his role in a June 1976 bank robbery that was committed shortly after a release from San Quentin. In June of 1978, Mills was sentenced to serve 20 years for his role in the plotting of a Fresno bank robbery for $21,000, which took place 2 years earlier. He quickly decided he better make as big of a name for himself in the Bureau of Prisons as he had already done in the California Department of Corrections. On May 20th of '79, Mills killed inmate John Marsloff at BOP Atlanta. The hit was ordered by Terrible Tommy Silverstein because Marsloff had burned Tommy prior. Marsloff was nearly decapitated in a prison yard restroom by Mills, who was backed up by the Aryan Brotherhood member Danny Holiday. It is not uncommon for the Aryan Brotherhood to kill white inmates, or even their own, who they feel broke the rules. The AB has also committed multiple murders of blacks, in particular Washington, D.C. blacks, known as DCB. The author was interviewed by the Biography Channel for a segment called The Baron of the Brotherhood, which focused on Mills and many vicious racial crimes that the Aryan Brotherhood committed. In March of '06, AB leaders Mills, Bingham, and Silverstein finally stood trial in a major RICO case. Prosecutors had hoped for the death penalty. Instead, what they got was another life sentence on top of the all-day time that they were already facing. Former Aryan Brotherhood members Kevin Roach, Brian Healy, Clifford Smith, Daniel Weeks, and Glenn West all agreed to cooperate for the prosecution, testifying against the AB. Long former AB shot caller Big Al Benton was also called as a witness. Even though the AB have been hit with multiple RICOs, they can still be as dangerous on the streets or in jail. There are many groups calling themselves the AB in the U.S., but not all of them get along with each other.
That's true.
Very
Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. You have ABs in Indiana. I mean, a lot of them kind of operate independently. I'm gonna let you go into the next article though, which is gonna be real interesting too. It talks more about the B.G.F.
Yeah, this is actually out of the East Bay Times, and this is very interesting because the black inmates testified on behalf of the Aryan Brotherhood during a situation that had occurred. This is from August of 2016. Santa Ana, 2 black prison gang members testified Wednesday that the notorious Aryan Brotherhood was too small and weak to attack a rival black gang behind bars and incite a race war that left 2 inmates dead. The testimony of the witnesses, members of the Crips and the Black Guerrilla family, came in the final days of a sweeping federal racketeering trial against a white supremacist gang. The case, believed to be one of the largest death penalty cases in U.S. history, alleged that imprisoned Aryan Brotherhood ringleaders orchestrated 32 murders and attempted murders over a 30-year period. Of the 40 people originally arrested, up to 16 could face the death penalty in several trials. At the heart of the government's case is a 1997 race riot at a prison in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, that resulted in the deaths of 2 members of the DC Blacks prison gang. Prosecutors allege the hits were ordered by way of secret message sent by 2 Aryan Brotherhood members currently on trial, Barry the Baron Mills and TD the Hawk Bingham, from another prison. Wednesday, an imprisoned member of the Black Guerrilla Family Gang testified that the Aryan Brotherhood was severely outnumbered in the federal prison system by the DC Blacks. Witness James Doc Holliday.
Very well known B.G.F member right there.
Just think American me. You ain't gonna win, Doc. Witness James Doc Holliday said 10 Aryan Brotherhood members at most were at his prison, while the DC Blacks were the overwhelming majority. Holliday said DC Blacks had a type of violent mentality that didn't exist among other prison gangs. He said the racial strife was largely instigated by the Black gang, with the Aryan Brotherhood defending itself. That's crazy.
Wow, I don't know what to say about that, bro.
That's insane, man. When tensions started to rise among the Black and white inmates in 1996 and 97, Mills tried to ease the problem rather than inflame it, Holliday said. I know him, and I know he wouldn't initiate something like that because he knows the consequences, Holliday said of the racial problems. Only the young and the foolish and the uninitiated would start something like that in prison, said Holliday, serving 2 life terms for drug violations. Earlier in the day, another inmate and member of the Crips testified that the DC Blacks vastly outnumbered the white supremacist gang, which had to act in self-defense. I care how it comes out because I know these people, said Mick Daughtry, in prison nearly 30 years on drug convictions, but I'm not biased. The government alleges Bingham passed a secret message that read, "War with DC Blacks, TD," to Aryan Brotherhood members at the Lewisburg prison in 1997 after racial strife broke out at a prison in Marion, Illinois. A series of government witnesses have testified that they helped pass the contents of the message written in invisible ink made from urine. The defense has argued that the message was a warning to Aryan Brotherhood members at other prisons about escalating racial tensions and that it was misinterpreted by those who received it. Holliday testified that the troubles at Marion began when a member of the DC Blacks assaulted a white inmate with a radio because he wanted to be transferred to another prison. Things escalated, he said, when the DC Black attacked white inmates in the prison yard. The trial began in mid-March and entered into final days this week. Defense attorneys for Bingham Mills and another defendant, Edgar the Snail Hevel, have rested their cases. The trial was recessed until July 6th, when an attorney for the 4th defendant, Christopher Gibson, began his defense. Closing arguments are expected to begin July 11th.
I don't know what to think about this, bro, to be honest with you, bro. I mean, I guess it's okay to sit there and say that, you know, I'm AB now, I'm BGF, I'm NF, I'm MA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of a trip, bro, because that's you know, Doc's been around for a long time, bro, like a minute. He's known in the system. I mean, he was part of the separation when the B.G.F was having their internal power struggle, where some wanted to go on to more of the radical, keep on the radical ways, and some wanted to go back into criminal organization ways. And then some wanted to adapt both, man. And, you know, first and foremost, you know, I think the Aryan Brotherhood in general, it's a criminal organization. Okay. Some may have some racial overtone tendencies towards their race and their beliefs, but I think in general, I don't think that they're more of a racially motivated group. I think they use that as a control mechanism as a recruiting basis.
Yeah,
I think they're strictly a criminal organization. I think they'll do dealings with whoever, whenever, if it benefits their pockets. As far as this testifying with the B.G.F, man, B.G.F and AB, as we just heard, they've been going at it for a long, long time. And You know, even in the 80s in the system, people forget, man, there was the NF and Mexican Mafia were the ones that were hit hardest and took it off on the yards. You know what I'm saying? During the validation process and the clampdown. The B.G.F. and AB had a little bit more wiggle room to be out there in those main lines during those years. Eventually, it finally caught up on a lot of them. And, you know, the B.G.F., as we already know, they actually have a chapter out there in Maryland. You know what I'm saying? That is a fact. An inmate from out that way did time in California, got embraced over here as a JAMA, went over to Maryland and asked the B.G.F. in California for permission to start his own chapter organization over there in Maryland. So I don't know what the difference is between the DC Blacks and the B.G.F. Is that the same thing, or is that two different entities?
I don't think so. I think that they get along, you know what I mean, to a certain extent, but I don't think that they're the same group. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the DC Blacks are their own entity.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if these because I'm listening to what the testimony of Doc is on the stand, and it's just, to me, it blows my mind away that why would you even involve yourself in? I mean, I know in the past this has happened, where people have, you know, came in to testify to try to downplay and help other groups, because at the end of the day, it's again, a lot of these groups are against the system. But traditionally, man, a lot of these criminal organizations or groups have a lot of, especially the B.G.F., they have a lot of hate towards the white establishment. And that the Aryan Brotherhood in a lot of ways has benefited off that, which makes it kind of shocking and surprising that he would even testify. But then again, I don't know if there's more to the story than what we know. You know what I'm saying? It just, to me, it doesn't make no sense.
I would think that there was some underlying type of agreement reached in some form or fashion, because it, like you said, it makes absolutely no sense, you know, to assist your supposedly mortal enemy.
But he's telling on his own people. That's what I don't get, to be honest, bro. He's telling on his own people. They started, they moved, these guys moved. These guys are more violent. These guys are, I mean.
That's what makes you realize that the B.G.F. and the DC Blacks are not really the same, you know, type of group, you know. I mean, I know there's somebody in our comments who knows this for sure that's done federal prison time. Myself nor Flacco have, but I'm 95% sure that the DC Blacks are their own entity and B.G.F. isn't. The DC Blacks are the deepest Black group in the feds, because the District of Columbia isn't really a state. So every Black inmate from the Washington, D.C. area, which is predominantly a Black area, goes to the federal system automatically. They don't have a state jail. They don't have county jails. They don't have that kind of stuff. It's all federal. So every Black, that'd be like every Black man from Oakland or let's say Chicago automatically going to the feds. They'd be deep as shit. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know, you're spread around the system. If you're from San Jose, you're spread around a 50 state system. There might be 2 or 3 of you in each institution. Well, you imagine the amount of Black men that are in prison in California that are in Oakland.
Yeah. I get it now.
Bigger spread out, dude. You know what I mean?
The DC Blacks would have to be different, because the B.G.F. is in the Maryland prison system. It's not in the DC system. Okay, they probably have some members from DC.
They're really close. They're all them East Coast cities are really close together, man. They're a half a day's drive. Okay. Baltimore, DC, Philly, New York.
You know, that makes sense. I learned something right now. The DC is not any part of any state, so they have to do all their time federally.
Yeah.
So every crime in that state is a federal crime.
Yeah.
And there is a big African American population there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Extremely big. You know, you wouldn't think so. You think, you know, White House. You think Republicans, Democrats, and all that type of shit. It's the hood, bro. DC's the hood.
So what do you think in this, listening to this, okay, first of all, what do you think about the history aspect? I mean, it's all pretty well known. Black didn't like white, white didn't like Black. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we all know that a lot of the white establishment or you know, the guards and stuff like that favoritized a lot of these Aryan brother circles, you know what I mean, or white circles. So therefore there was a lot more, you know, struggles and oppositions and interference that were put in front of Black inmates in the prison system. You know, now take over. This is what, 30 years later, you know what I'm saying? Now they're over here testifying for each other, you know?
You know, what's a trip, man, that I find pretty interesting is, in my experience during my time, the Blacks versus the whites didn't happen as often as you would think it would. You would think those would be the main 2 groups always butting heads, when in actuality, it was North and South, and North and whites, Southerners against blacks, in my experience.
But you know what, though? Both those groups amongst their own probably talk shit the most about each other than any of the other groups, bro. You know what I'm saying? On both sides.
No, man, there's no doubt about it.
You know what I'm saying? But they have the less history of violence, yet the you know, the Northerners and Southerners. I mean, all the groups get it cracking. Don't get me wrong. I mean, blacks, the whites, everybody has a different political structure, man. But the traditionally, man, it seems like the traditional Hispanic groups, whatever they may be, have been the ones that are more fierce with taking care of business when push comes to shove, man. You know what I'm saying?
You know, the feds can get gangster, bro. They have every group from every major city represented in their prisons. North, South, Crips, Bloods, Disciples, Latin Kings, DC Blacks, Aryan Brotherhood, you name it, bro. It's in the federal system.
And yeah, I mean, you could be in a pen. Think about it. You could be in a pen, you know, up, you know what I mean, in New York and stuff, and have like 30 Latin Kings and stuff, and get along with all kinds of people. Then you could be somewhere like in, you know, prison out there in Nevada or Arizona or one of those states, man, and only be like 2-3 deep. So you would think that there would have to be some type of working relationships amongst groups. I know the Tango Blast and the Sureños have an arrangement to where, like, on one side, the Tango Blast have the majority at this prison. They're letting the Sureños coexist, and then on this prison over here, I've heard the Tango Blasts are outnumbered. The Sureños are the predominant ones. So you kind of would have to think that these groups would have to kind of have a, you know, some type of understanding, because I don't know how these groups work, these organizations and stuff like that, but I know how the Northerners and Southerners work for a fact, that whatever happens a lot of times at this prison over here is going to really affect everything. It's going to translate through the grapevine. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so if we have 3 homeboys over here on this yard and they get rushed by some random group that, you know, some group that we never heard of, you know what I'm saying? The shit kicks off. Those people on the next prison where we may have the dominant numbers, they're going to have to pay the consequences for those actions. So that the feds would be kind of a trip, man, like that, bro.
What it is in California, you're playing a single game of chess. Nationwide, you're playing multiple things, because like you said, there could be 3 Northerners in this place. They could get jumped by some vice lords. You know, I'm not singling them out, just saying. Whereas there's 52 homeboys there in Florence, Colorado, and 7 vice lords. You know what's going to happen. So you're playing on a much bigger scale in the feds, because there's more players. Like out here, we got white, black, north, south, bulldogs. That's it, really. Across the nation, vice lords, gangster disciples, Latin Kings, NETA, all the California gangs, all the Texas gangs, all the Chicago gangs, and then whatever else there is. There's a lot more players on a bigger playing field, so you have to be way more strategic to make.
And you got to play, and you got to kind of understand their politics as they got to understand your politics.
Yep.
Like some of these groups, like they do stuff like they actually sign. Like I know Mad Dog in the Mexican enemy from Texas. They actually had a truce agreement where they actually signed their names next to it. You know what I'm saying? It's all written in a whole. I think it was around 2005 or 2006. I don't know what year it was. I could be wrong on the years, but there's actually documents of them having an arrangement agreement of a truce, of you know, being able to coexist. So that's the way. And the Texas MA did that with the California MA faction as well. They had their, or no, they didn't do it with the California MA. Excuse me, they did that with the TS and all that when they were in the feds. I believe it was. We did a little spill on that, but they also did. Huh?
I actually got a picture of Bird and Henry chilling with like 30 members of 3 different Texas groups, just like this, taking pictures on the yard. Man, it's a whole different world in there, man.
Yeah,
it would take a while to figure that out if you haven't been there before, for sure.
So let me ask you a question. So how did this occur, though? I mean, these are 2 names that are known in the system, an AB leader and a B.G.F leader. There had to have been some type of dialogue or some type of communication going on. As much as people like to think that sometimes these individuals have like a total hatred towards each other, you could have that dislike for your enemy at the same time as respecting them. You know what I mean? Like the ability to have communications whenever necessary. You know, deep down inside what the individuals may think of each other, but when there's a common goal to push an agenda against the establishment, you know, that's the only thing I can self-justify with this with the testimony. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Yeah, I mean, if I was still active, I don't think I would ever testify on anybody's behalf, any other inmates. I just don't think I would do it, unless it was against maybe the guards back then. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't want to invoke myself as far as categorizing other groups to help another person, another group, because we can't even do that for ourselves. Yeah, we're not even what we were a part of. We're not even allowed to do that for our own people, right? How am I going to do that for some other group that's been my enemy for years? It bedazzles me. You know what I mean, when I was reading this article, man, and I guess there has to be some type of explanation to it, bro. What do you think?
I think a lot of groups have politics that are that deep, whereas where we come from, they're unlimited. So we look at things really skeptically by nature, whereas other people might be able to make different agreements. Like you're saying, bro, I can't even really go to trial and help you if I have to. The only things that I could say that would help you would get me in trouble.
Bro, they started
alone another group. It's mind-boggling.
I mean, there's people in San Jose that tried to do that, bro. One of them tried to get up there on the stand and say that he's the one that caught the hit to get the Carnal off the beat the case. I never thought that would be able to be fucking tolerated. I don't even think it was tolerated. I think there was question marks afterwards about that, bro. You know?
Yeah. Taking the stand as anybody underneath that northern umbrella for any reason, man, even trying to defend yourself could turn into something all bad, bro. It's really, really frowned upon and looked down upon, and man, it's going to be scrutinized from A to Z, man. With other groups, it's just not really like that. And we're talking, and you got to remember, those individuals are the absolute heads of their groups as well, so they can they have more wiggle room than say me or you trying to work something out. You know, so man, it's hard to say, but there was definitely some kind of agreement reached, because them black gentlemen, they're not just going to be like, hey, we're going to go testify for these guys. Fuck that. It just doesn't make no sense, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You know?
I'm gonna call someone after we get this video done. I'm gonna ask them. You know what I mean, I'm gonna ask them about that, man. I'm say it doesn't make no sense to me. I mean, you know, honestly, I don't want to sit there and slander anybody's name in the process of my thinking process. So I can't say nothing about an individual that's recognized as a beast his whole life. But the thing that starts to wonder me is what was the purpose of this? I mean, how did this benefit him? How did this benefit the group?
It benefits.
I could sit there and draw all kinds of 100 different conclusions. I could think maybe some money. Yeah. I could think maybe some testimony down the line, maybe some other working relationships.
A peace agreement of some sort.
Maybe a peace agreement. I don't know. You know,
it's just it's a very interesting situation, bro. There's no doubt about it.
You know,
I can't.
It's hard to give your perspective, because my perspective on this may be wrong, man. You know what I'm saying? Because it's something that you never would have thought in a million years you would see.
The one thing that's not wrong, though, is it did happen. You know, it's documented, files, court transcripts, all that. It did happen. Like Flacco said, the perspective on this one's hard, because it's like it's unforeseen in history, really. You know, especially by people still considered good within their particular group.
So there has been other groups in the past that have done something similar, and where they've even allowed their people, not as far as the NF, but the other groups, where they've allowed their people to go testify on certain things and admit the admission of their group and trying to help beat a case. You know what I mean? Like where the green light didn't come from. Oh, this couldn't have possibly happened. Oh, they're not a member, or this and that. There has been some cases with a lot of these groups in retrospect. You know what I mean? And some of them kind of backfired, to where I know some of the groups stopped doing that. I mean, I know there were some issues that were going on with the fellows down south in the feds, where a few of them kind of tried to help testify on their behalf, and it kind of backfired the way that they wanted to. And I know in the past there's also been groups that have, you know, this isn't the first time that a B.G.F or AB or whatnot didn't try to testify and help each other out. There's stuff that happened in LA County years ago too that was similar, but that was more of a common goal thing too as well, man. So I'm just wondering if this was you know, just a shot at the system to say F you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, just because the death penalty was on the table. And there's nothing worse than a prosecutor filing charges on someone that's already doing life, that's never going to get out, spend all that money, get a conviction, and they still don't get the death penalty. That's the worst thing that happens to any type of prosecutor, because these prosecutors are almost, in a sense, man, they're almost like gang members. They got their egos too. A conviction is not enough. They want that death penalty. They want this and that. Because otherwise, why are you even going to try these individuals? They're already doing life in prison. So that could, I mean, 32 murders is a lot, bro. I mean, how far back are they going on that?
3 decades.
3 decades?
One a year, basically.
Yeah.
You know, that's not astronomical, but in full, it's a lot. You know, the
Yeah.
final tally is pretty decent, but yeah, I don't get it, bro. You know, it's hard to fathom. I'm sitting here like brain locked because there has to be a major something that's not known for this to transpire, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because traditionally, these groups have been at war.
Yeah.
I mean, I know nowadays, whether you're in the feds or state, there's a little bit of less comp. Now it seems like the last 20 years, enemies and stuff that people have had in the past no longer exist. The ones that you used to get along with are now more your enemies than the ones that you're normally getting off with. It's just a trip, man.
Yeah, things change, man, every year, man. So it's hard to tell. It's real hard to judge something that's going on in the feds too, man, because man, it's a huge platform, bro, compared to California. You know,
Yeah.
just so many different entities involved, man. But we thought you'd find that story interesting that the Black Guerrilla family actually assisted the Aryan Brotherhood in a trial, saying that they were basically innocent. You heard it. Tell us your opinions in the comments, man. Hope you have a good Saturday. It's your boy Rojo, Big Flacco. One of us will be at you on the live a little later. Enjoy your weekend.